Hi everyone, so today we're going to rig this male character over here. I've got everything in a new collection, which you can do by right clicking and saying new collection. The color is red because I right clicked on the icon and chose it that way. I have two views here. If you want to add more views, you just hover your mouse over some dead space. You'll see it turns into a crosshair and you can click drag to add a new view. You can also hover your mouse over that empty space, and if you right click hard enough you can close the area. The other way of doing that is you can just right click over empty space and you can say horizontal or vertical split, which also gives you another screen view. So I've got one that's on my side view, I've got one that's on my front view. So here are all of the images you might want to use as a guide for what we're going through if you want to screenshot these. So the only thing that's changed in this skeleton is the position of the pelvis bone. There's all the naming conventions. There's the hand, the fingers. You can see I've used Ctrl R to rotate those. There's the toes, or you could just do one big bone for the toes. That's what they look like. And then there's everything in X-ray mode. And then the IK, you can see it's got a chain length of 2. I have a -90° pole angle. Alright, so there were all of our images. Let's get straight into this. Yoink. Alrighty, so we need to add an armature. So I'm going to say Shift A armature. Go into edit mode on this, and you can say Alt Z to get X-ray mode. X-ray mode can also be found using this icon up here, and it is per view. Notice how I have to go X-ray mode on both of these. Okay. So let's do that. So edit mode on this bone. I'm going to press G and drag it down. We never scale these bones, ever. We only use G to move them around and R to rotate them. So I've moved this down. I'm going to click on this bone, and you can either say F2 to name it and enter, or you can go into the green bone panel with the bone that you've selected, and there's the name up there that you can change as well. Okay, so that is our main bone, which is our first one. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to Shift D to duplicate it. Make sure you're still in edit mode for this. And I'm going to drag the main bone to around like here or so. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the top nub. I'm just going to move it down. And I'm going to try and position this bone so that it's upside down. This will help us for the legs later on. Alright, so there we go. I'm also going to move it a little bit on the side view. I'm going to take this, move that back slightly, move that forward slightly. So this, if I click on it and press F2, is going to be our hip bone. Naming conventions are here if you need. So hip, spine, thorax, chest, sternum, neck and head. So that is our hip. So I'm going to press E to extrude a whole bunch of bones here, and every bone that I extrude, I try and always put the nub in an area where the human body realistically bends. So I'm going to press E to extrude, move this one up to about here, and I'm going to name that the spine. Then I'm going to select that nub, press E to extrude, move it about there, and I'm going to name this one the thorax. Enter, and I'm going to click on that nub, still in edit mode for all of this, E to extrude, move it up about here and call it the chest. Say chest. And then for the neck, I used to do one single bone, but I've gotten a new habit now where I do two. So I'm going to E to extrude, move this one about there or so, and then E to extrude, move this one about there or so. So this will be the sternum, this will be the neck, and then we have one more bone, have the little nub sticking out the top, and I'm going to call this bone the head. So head, neck, sternum, chest, thorax, spine, and hip. You could also call this spine 1, spine 2, spine 3, spine 4, spine 5, 6, and 7. Okay, from the side view, we need to change the way that these are angled. Usually people either put the spine in the middle or they put it right at the back of the character. I like to stick this whole thing in the middle. So we need a nice curve so that Blender has a good idea when we get to weighting later on what angle this goes towards. If you click on one of these nubs and move them around and you see only one bones nub moves, that is a problem. You need to click drag both of them and then G to move them. You never want to have them break. So I don't have that issue with the others, but I think it's just because we rotated it. So if you do have that problem, just make sure you grab both of the bones. Okay, so move this. The neck kind of goes up like that, and then it goes around there for the head. You can actually move the whole head back a little bit. So this kind of connects at the jawline, like there. Alrighty, so that is our skeleton. Another thing I forgot to mention, you can go into the green running man icon, like little tab. There's this called in front, which means now even out of X-ray mode, I can always see the bones in front of the mesh, in front of the skin. So that is something that you can use as well if you want. I think I'll do that just so that I can put it on screen for everybody to see. So I'll leave this up for a little bit so that you can use it as reference. Cool. So I'm going to scroll down here, open up our armature, open this up. Alright, we've got a problem going on. So there's the main, the hip is there, the spine is there. Ideally, we want it that if we move the main bone, if I select the main bone, move that around, everything should follow it in edit mode as well, which is not the case right now. So we should probably fix that. Let's select the hip, then shift select the main bone, Control P, keep offset. You have to do this in edit mode. So now you'll see when I open up this drop down, the hip is now childed to the main bone, which means when I click on the main bone and I drag it around, it's all good. There's this line that is now connected. But what we also need to do is connect the rest of this. So select the spine, shift select the hip, Control P, keep offset. So now we've got, you can see this sort of hierarchy starting to form. Very cool. So I can drag the main bone around, drag this around, and you see we have our little binders everywhere. Alrighty, so that's all done. What we need to do next is work on the arm. Alrighty, so for the arm, I'm just going to move this up here. What we need is we need to take our main bone, and using this main bone we need to shift D to duplicate it, move it up to around here. I'm going to put this nub around there, put this nub around there. Some people have these clavicle bones like that, some people have them like that. I'm just going to keep it here for the time being. And in my side view, I'm going to try and move that nub so that it's on the side of this chest bone. I'm going to take the other nub here and try and move it to be in the center of the shoulder, like there, so that it's got enough skin around it, enough flesh to work with. Cool. That's our first one. Let's name that clavicle dot capital L. Enter. Then I'm going to select this clavicle bone, this whole thing here, and in edit mode I'm going to select the chest bone here. I'm going to say Control P, keep offset. So now the clavicle is bound to the chest bone. Nice stuff. So I'm going to take the little nub here, I'm going to E to extrude, move it down to about here. So that's going to be our upper arm. So let's call this upper arm dot capital L. This here, E to extrude, move it down to about there or so. This is going to be our lower arm, L. Try and have a little bit of a bend going. And then we're going to do one more to about here. And this is going to be my hand, L. So I've got another image over here which might be helpful. And we're going to work with the fingers from there. See how this also follows the arm? We need to put that together. So in the side view, I'm going to select, let's see, we've got that, that is correct. This needs to move a little bit inward. So you can use your top or your side view for this. This definitely needs to move inward. And this needs to move around there also. It's already looking much better. Just bring this forward a little bit more. Cool. So that gives us our sort of arm shape. Another thing you can do if you look at these bones from the front on is some of them might be a little bit sort of squiff. If you want to rotate a bone, click on it and do Control R, and that will let you roll the bone. They don't have to face exactly flat forward, but it's a good idea to just give Blender as much help as we can. So there we go. If you don't see that from Control R, you can always go into the green bone tab and you'll see there is this over here called Roll, which you can click drag on to move those around quickly. Alrighty. So our next step is to put together the hand. Woo, everybody's favorite part of the skeleton. Not. So you can do one big bone like that, and then you can add another bone for the thumb, and then just parent this to that with the click on this, click on that, Control P, keep offset stuff. But I'm going to work on individual fingers. So for individual fingies, I'm going to click on this, Shift D to about there, and I want this and that, Control P, keep offset. I basically wanted that if I go into pose mode, I move this, the fingers move with this. Likewise, currently, if you move that bone in pose mode, it should move the whole upper body. If you move that one, it should move the rest of the upper body. If you move this one, it should only move the arm. And if you move this one, it should move everything. And that's all the Control P parenting stuff we'll be doing. So let's go back into edit mode. Okay, this, I'm going to move this around here. So the thumb is going to be 2 bones, and everything else will be 3. So let's just focus on the front view. Press E to extrude. Try have those little nubs always jut out the end of the finger. Okay, so that's 1. Let's Shift D to duplicate this. I'm going to press G and move this around, let's say here. Move that about there. I can see this is off. Yeah, we're going to have to move all of those fingers into place. Alright, so I've got this. Press E to extrude around there. E to extrude around here. Okay, so let's select the thumb bones. So I'll just select that and that. And on the side view now, I'm going to press G to move that forward, G to move that around there, and G to move that around there. Constantly dragging with my middle mouse scroll down. Okay, let's go there, let's go here, let's go here, and let's go here. Okay, so this finger, I'm going to try to straighten that a little bit. Sort of semi-straight like so. And now that we can kind of get a clearer picture, see how there are these like squares, these square geometry shapes. I like to angle the nubs so that they are directly in the middle of those squares. At the top here we've got some creative liberty. I'm just going to move that about there. Here I can see there's a bit of creative liberty. Move this to about here, and that down there is fine. You can use this image as reference if you want. If you want to screenshot that quickly. Cool. Alrighty, so that's the first one. It would be nice if we could get a little bit of an arc going. Just a slight arc. Okay, first finger done. Let's take that, Shift D to duplicate. I'm going to move that around there. Shift D to duplicate the next one. Move that around there, and Shift D to duplicate the last one. Move that around there. Okay, each of these fingers are going to need some serious work. So I'll do the pinky. Let's move that here. I wonder if in front will make this a little bit easier to see. Not particularly. Okay, then what I'm going to do, just so that this is a little bit less annoying, I'm going to click drag all of that and press H to hide. Now we can focus on these fingers. So H hides bones and Alt H unhides them. Okay, finger time. Let's take this, move this up here. Take this, move this up here. Take this, move that up there. Then I'm going to take this bone, and ideally all of these should be in their squares. So let's move that up, let's move that up, let's move that up. Square is just an analogy for joint in this case. Okay, so those have all been moved. And we want this nub sticking out, this nub sticking out, and this nub sticking out. I can see we can sort of curve these a little bit better. Alrighty. And then from the side view, these need some love. So let's try and get a finger, a skeleton in every finger. That. Then our next one, I might have to actually X-ray mode for this. Yeah, let's move this in. Let's move this in. And then this whole thing, I think we could just yoink, grab that entire bone. It's about okay. This next finger, which I think is a little bit easier from the front. Let's take that, take that, take that. Make sure we grab the right one. There. And then this last one at the bottom, around here. Cool. So I'm just going to clean this slightly. Something like that, 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 and that. Okay, that's looking fairly good. They're all inside of the skin quite nicely. If I remove in front, okay, there are some of them that are sticking out a little bit. This, this, and this. Let's just move those a little. And then he is sticking out slightly, so let's take him. Drag those in a bit. So a slight bit of stick out, but overall this is very workable. Okay, next thing. These bones, we need to do the whole Control R shebang. What I like to do for the Control R is I like to actually go into the mesh and then Control R them so that they follow those squares in the joints. So if I look in the mesh here, I can see these are not following. So I'm just going to select the hand. You Control R that a little bit, like so. Okay, and all of these, we could individually select each bone and we could Control R them, or we could group select them with Shift. So I'm going to select that, select that, select that. Control R, all of them at once. There we go. Select that, select that, select that. Control R, all at once. Then select that. All the way down there. Try to get a good angle. That. Control R. That. Control R as well. We can do the same for the rest of the bones in this arm. So that hand can actually benefit from some of this. This other bone can benefit from some of that too. I guess you're getting to know your character inside and out. Zoom out. Alrighty. Let's look at this front view, X-ray, side view, X-ray. Perfect. Now, of course, everything needs to be renamed. Very fun. So, this top one here is the upper arm.L, lower arm.L, down here. This is the hand. Each of these need to be named. Each finger. So this one here, I'm going to call this thumb.L. In fact, we should say thumb_1.L, thumb_2.L, and this is index_1.L, and so on. Naming conventions are, they should be around here. Okay, if I haven't included it, it's basically thumb, then we have got index, then we have got middle, then ring, and then pinky. And it's the exact same for the toes as well. It's the index, middle, ring, pinky. We just changed thumb to big toe. Okay, so let's go over here. So index, then I'm going to say index_2.L, index_3.L, middle_1.L, middle_2.L, middle_3.L, and then ring_1.L, ring_2.L, ring_3.L, and pinky, which I put with a Y, _1.L, pinky _2.L, and pinky _3.L. Cool. Everything has been named. You can always move these bones a little bit more to make sure that they take up some flesh. How I've got this set up right now looks to be okay. If you want to zoom in on a bone, you can always click on it and press the full stop button on your numpad. So yeah, their positions aren't set in stone. You can always change them up. Like that thumb down there, I can always Control R this, move this around whenever I want. Don't be too hesitant or iffy with them. Cool, so that is our entire arm. Let's get everything else to show again. So I'm going to say Alt-H to show the entire skeleton, everything that we've hidden. Alrighty, so that is our entire arm done and dusted. We now need to make the leg. So for the leg, what I like to do usually with this is I like to duplicate the pelvis bone here. So if you select the pelvis, Shift D, drag it around there. No scaling, remember. Move the nub up here, and just like what we did with the top, the clavicle and the chest, how we aligned that nub there, we're going to do the same here. So take the nub and align it there with the pelvis. I'm going to take this over here, and I'm going to move this around. So let's take that, move that down there also. See how I'm trying to get this knee That's a pretty big bone. We also need to move it forward quite a bit. And then I'm going to press E to extrude, move this all the way down here to try and get an ankle. And I'm going to drag that all the way back there. It's okay if this bone sticks out a little bit. You should never have a straight leg bone or a straight arm bone. You should always have some sort of bend, because later on, if you choose to do Rigify stuff or you choose to do automatic weighting, that does make a difference. Especially with IK as well. It helps Blender decide what direction a bone should bend. Cool. So we're going to take this upper leg dot L, just like we had an upper arm and lower arm. So this was the lower leg dot L. And then we have this little ankle. So from a side view, it's going to be super helpful. What I'm going to do is select that nub, press E to extrude down to about there. So we'd call this the ball of the foot. And that is going to be our foot.L, just like we had a hand.L. And then you just move it a little bit to the center. Cool. Alrighty, so you can go the one big bone route for your foot. That's more than fine. Also means that you can still bend it as well. You can bend your toesies. But what I'm going to do is every single toe individually. Very fun. So I'm just going to take that, drag that back over here. And let's just make sure everything is parented properly. So if I go into pose mode, if I click on main bone, the whole leg should go. Yep. Press on the pelvis, it should not move the leg. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, that actually works quite well. If I move this one, it should. Excellent. Okay, back into edit mode. Select this. You can probably see where we're going with this by now. Shift D to duplicate. Move it around here. Should be about there-ish or so. And there. Once again, this is becoming a little bit tricky to work with all these bones, so I'm just going to take those and I'm going to hide them. You can select in front here, it might actually make things a little bit easier. Okay, so that bone is squiff, let's move that around there, move that around there. And the reference images we have to work with, ideally you want something like this. So all of our toes are kind of straight and they have a slight bend in the side view. So that's our goal. We need something like this. Leave it up a little bit longer so that you can screenshot it. And then they look like that in a front view and that from underneath. So the nubs are always sticking out. Cool, so let's put those together. We're taking a step in the right direction here. Let's move this down around there. And take this for the big toe and let me grab that to about there or so. Yeah, this X-ray mode actually is helping quite nicely. Let's move this here. And I'm going to rotate this bone prematurely, like that. Because when I duplicate now, it'll make everything else a little bit easier to work with. Alright, so that's our big toe. Let's extrude the next one. There we go. Move it slightly to the side. Shift, select those. Duplicate, 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 and duplicate. Okay, so these top ones are going to be a lot more level than the hand, the fingers. So it'll be around there, around here, and around here also. And all of these to the middle, ideally. The middle of that, the middle of this joint, the middle of this joint. And these nubs should just be sticking out. Have that one be a little bit longer than the other one. Alrighty, so select that, move this in place. And then let's select that one there. Yeah, the bottom view makes this easy to see as well. We've got less X-rayed geometry to deal with. There we go. Press G to move this one. Press G to move this one. Yeah, this is coming together quite nicely. And that top one there. Cool. So those reference images, let's go back and check these out. Yeah, this underside, we're looking for something like that. It's almost like keys on a piano in a very strange, odd way. And each of these in the side view here should have a slight bend. So let's select this nub, this nub, this nub, this nub, and this nub. We're just going to press G, move them down slightly. And then this nub, this nub, this nub, this nub, and this nub. I'm going to press G and move those down a little bit. There. So now from a side view, they're all bending downward. See, that's quite a high rise actually. We can select these middle ones again. And if you want, you can actually move those upward slightly. It's up to you. In the originals, I don't think I was too picky with this. Yeah, so we'll do that. These nubs back here as well. You can take those. We ideally want them to be in some good central geometry. So I'll just do something like that. There, we get this nice gradual bend. Very cool. If I select this bone and go into pose mode, see how the toes are not following. Okay, so we need to go edit mode again. Select this, shift select that, Control P, keep offset. So select the top of the toe, select the foot, Control P, keep offset. Top of the toe, foot, Control P, keep offset. You can also multi-select them and then select the top and say keep offset, and it does them all at once. Very cool. So naming conventions, woo! Let's select this one and say big toe underscore 1.l, big toe underscore 2.l, and then we have the index underscore 1.l, index underscore 2.l, and then it should be middle toe, middle underscore 1.l, middle underscore 2.l, ring underscore 1.l, ring underscore 2.l, pinky underscore 1.l, and pinky underscore 2.l. Alright, so it's looking decent. Very decent actually. Alright, so same rules as before. Select these and do our Control R. It shouldn't be as much here because we kind of straightened them beforehand. Just a little bit of Control R, Control R, and the pinky is the only one where it looks like it properly needs a Control R. Let's just do that. And then you can also work your way through the rest of the bones in that leg. Okay, so I'm going to go Alt H to unhide everything. You just investigate this one. So in edit mode, I can actually control R that one a little bit. And I can control R this one a little bit as well. I think front view, as long as it's not like too squiff like that. You don't want something like this. You want something that's a little bit more flat on. And actually rotate that a little bit more out to the side. And this one, rotate that so that's a little bit level on the top. Cool. Good stuff. Coming together quite nicely. Let's do in front. Go back down here. Yeah, and it's just a little bit of eyeballing. Alright. So that gives us our leg. At this point, we would usually go here and flip this bone upside down, but we've already got that done, which is quite nice. Okay, so that works, and this works, and all the little toes go with that, all the little fingers go with that. Good stuff! I'd like to quickly address a possible problem that you might be having. If you are over here and you're in, let's say, edit mode, and you have something like that, right, where these two nubs, even if they're not exactly over, you've got a problem like that. That is something that we actually very much need to fix. So I'll just do that for sake of the example, just to show you guys the fix. Okay, so let's actually say, yeah, this one is a bit down here. Alright? Okay, so if you have a problem like this where the bone is not connected on the nub, you can select the hip nub first in edit mode and then say Shift S, cursor to selected, cursor to selected down here. There we go. Then you can select the spine nub and say Shift S, selection to cursor. See how it moves it there? Now they're both connected again. So very, very nice. However, your cursor is now stuck over here. We need to move it back to the center of the world. Otherwise, what happens is if you add in more things, they'll always be brought in from here, which is something you don't want. So to fix that now, Shift S, cursor to world origin. Now it goes back down there. Good stuff. So that will fix any possible error that you may have, including an error during waiting that comes up later. Okay, so all of this is done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this, this, and this. So those three bones. And I'm going to select this, this, and this. Those three bones. So we have 3, and we have 3. And I'm going to say Shift D to duplicate them. And I'm going to say Shift M. I'm going to say New Collection and call this IK. And then say Move. If you are working in Blender 3.6, any of the Blender 3 versions, you will have something called groups instead. I've got something called collections. You will need to move your bones to a new group. So if you look on the side over here, you'll see that we've got in the Green Running Man tab in edit mode, something called bone collections if you're in one of the Blender 4 versions, bone groups if you're in one of the Blender 3 versions. So they have these little dots, they have these little eyeballs. If I press the eyeball, you'll see all the bones disappear. So these are basically layers, very similar to what you get in Photoshop. If I click on the eyeball icon here, you can see this shows all the bones in our bones layer. So if I click on this, let's go edit mode. Maybe pose mode would be a little bit better to work with this in. Let's say pose mode. Okay, yeah, pose mode works quite nicely. So if I click here in pose mode, on any of these, notice that the spine that I click on, so the eyeball here is on, that little dot, it might be on this side for you if you're in Blender 4.0, That little dot means this bone exists on that layer. We want each bone to exist on one layer. So the spine is correct. That exists there, that exists there, that exists there. If I click on here, you'll see this bone exists on both layers. We don't want this bone to exist on both layers. So we have a little bit of work that we need to do. See how I can click once and it shows the duplicated bones that we've made. So ideally, our duplicated bones should only exist on their new duplicated layer. Basically what we're doing is we are creating 3 skeletons. Let me visualize it quickly. So we are working towards something like this. See how I've got a bones layer, an IK layer, and an FK layer. So if I hide the bones layer, whole skeleton disappears. If I show the IK layer only, we get an IK rig. We can move around. If I hide that, show the FK layer, we get an FK skeleton that we can move around. So we've basically got 1, 2, 3 skeletons, all built off of the original base. So back on our normal dude here, we've got our bones. So we want to make sure each bone we click on in the normal bones layer has only got 1 dot. So it's 1 dot, that's got 2 dots, that's got 2 dots, that's got 2 dots, and the rest have 1. So if we select those 3, then we click on the other collection, the IK one, the one with the eye that's off, we can say remove. See how the little eye, sorry, not the eye, the dot now disappears? So these bones only exist on this bones collection now. So if I hide that, I show this. So we had a little bit of an issue going on here. It's actually removed them. So let's straight up get rid of all of these here. So you can press the minus button to get rid of a collection like that. Okay, so we need to do this again, but with a little bit more grace. So let's select that bone. I'm in pose mode right now. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So those 6, Shift D to duplicate. Yep, so they're all duplicated. And with those selected, I should be able to move these. Yep. So with those still selected, I'm going to say Shift M, New Collection, IK, and then move. Alright, so then with them still selected, I'm going to click on bones, say remove, and the little dot disappears. So now if I hide my IK bones, you'll see I've got the normal skeleton here, the full normal skeleton. If I hide the normal skeleton and show the IK, you can see I've got all the things that we duplicated. Good stuff. We need to do the same thing once more, but for the FK skeleton. So select this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and Shift D to duplicate. And with them duplicated, so let me just make sure that that actually did not, Shift D, there we go. And with the, oh, it's being extra funky today for me. Thanks, Blender. Select these again, Shift D to duplicate those bones. Hold on. Okay, you might want to do this in edit mode if you're getting those issues that I was. So Shift D to duplicate, and now it works without problem. So edit mode is the way to go for this. So I've duplicated them. I'm going to say Shift M, New Bone Collection, and call this FK. And say move. And with them still selected, I'm going to select the bones layer and say remove. Alrighty, so if I click on this bone up here now, I'm going to go back to pose mode. If I click on this one here, it says that it is one of the IK ones. That's an IK one, that's an IK one. IK, IK, IK. Okay, let me hide all of this. That's an FK, a normal bone, normal bone, normal bone, normal bone. Spines are all normal, good stuff. And if I hide that, show the FK layer, there they all are. Good. So we've basically got 3 different layers. So I say select these. You can see I can move these skeletons independent of each other. Over here, Alt select that, and Alt select that. So we have 3 skeletons. Let's bring this all back together. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we actually need to run through all of these bones, and we need to give them a prefix. So that means we go to the bone, we remove the 001 that's auto-generated, and if it is an IK bone, you add IK underscore at the beginning. So over here, I remove those numbers at the end, and I add IK underscore at the beginning. We need to do this for everything. So over here, IK underscore. Down here, IK underscore. Over here, IK underscore. And over here, IK underscore. Good. Same with the FK. So FK underscore. Then FK underscore. And lastly, there. Move up here. You can FK underscore this, FK underscore this, and FK underscore that. Whoop. Let me try that again. FK underscore hand dot go. Cool. So now everything is named properly. You can see I'll click once here, I get the upper arm, I click again, I'll get the IK or the FK upper arm. So they're all overlaid on top of each other. The other thing that we want to do for all of these is we need to decide which bones will control the skin. So this base dude over here, this base skeleton, controls the skin. The IK bones and the FK bones we've just done are merely to puppet him. So this one here is what controls the flesh. Just select the main bone, go into the green bone interface, remove deform, uncheck it on the main bone, but make sure that it's checked on all the other bones. These all control skin. I'm going to go back to my bone collections, show the IK ones, go to the green bone icon and uncheck deform for all of them. If you try to multi-select them like this and uncheck deform, you'll see it doesn't work. You have to manually go to each one and say uncheck deform. So now I'm going to go to the FK bones, this one over here, remove deform, remove deform, remove deform on this one, go here, remove deform, and remove deform. Okay, so none of those have deform enabled. Cool stuff. So that's our IK and our FK. You can see I can select all of these, move that across, and go here, select all of these, move those across. So those are our 3 skeletons. Another cool thing that you can do is you can always go to a layer and you can say select to automatically select them, or deselect to automatically unselect them. Rightio, so that's all of our deforming done. What we're going to move on to now is making our IK chains. So the chains, those are your little controls, like these things here. We're going to do them for the arms and the legs. So that means I need to hide everything except the IK. Here we go. So we're going to work with this. Let's make the chain. Look at your character from top down. Select the wrist and press E to extrude from the nub. This is going to be our first bone, and we're extruding them from the top view so that they stay exactly straight. So with that bone selected, go Alt P and say clear parent. Alt P again, make sure disconnect bone has also been done. If it's grayed out, it means it's done that automatically for you. So that is our first controller. We're going to use this as our puppet string for the wrist. So select this wrist bone in edit mode now. Then shift select the control and say Control P, keep offset. So now if I go into pose mode, I grab this control, see it moves around the wrist. Alrighty, that's very nice. Now we need to select the lower arm here. Go into the blue T-bone stake tab. I don't see it just yet, which means maybe I need to be in pose mode. I do, there we go. So in pose mode I select it, there's a blue like T-bone sort of stake. So this is what we need. We're going to add a constraint, we're going to add inverse kinematics, which is over here. It's orange right now, which means it's not set up properly, so we can fix that. The target, click on the little eye drop. We need to select our entire armature, this orange thing here in your hierarchy. There we go. Then the bone, we need to find this controller. So let's rename the controller quickly. So IK underscore CTRL for control underscore lower arm.L and remove the 001 at the end. That is the name that we need. Cool. So let's select this. We need to find that bone now. So let's scroll down and look for CTRL. CTRL. Here it is. Now it becomes yellow. You'll see it adds that in as a new field. The chain length we're going to make 2. So now if I select on this bone here in pose mode and move it around, see how we start getting that sort of nice IK shape. But there's a problem with this. Breaks off. We need to fix that as well. Very fun. So to fix that, select the hand, add in the blue T-bone stake tab on your hand bone, go into the bone constraints and add a copy location, which is up here. The target, select your armature, and the bone, look for the IK underscore lower arm dot L. And it jumps away. Ooh, it's vanished into Spanish. To bring it back, go to this head tail slider, move that all the way to 100. Yoink. There we go. So now if I click on this and I move this around, that's all good. If I break it off, it's only the control that disappears, which is fine. The rest of this remains the same. So that means your skin basically will not stretch on your character. Also make sure that deform is not on in the green bone tab on your controller. No deform. Alrighty, so let's look at this top down again. Edit mode. Select the little nub on your shoulder. Sorry, not your shoulder, your elbow. E to extrude, our next little puppet string. Click on it, Alt P, clear parent, disconnect the bone, if it's an option, and press G, move it back a little bit. So this, if we go F2, we're going to call this IK underscore CTRL underscore upper arm dot L. Enter. So in pose mode, go to the IK bone, so the yellow one. Go into its T-bone stake blue menu, and for the pole target, select that bone So we need to actually, let me see, it does want the armature first. Okay, so let's give it the armature. And then the bone, we need to find that specific new controller. You can also type to search for it. You can say IK underscore. And if you just say C, you'll see over there. We need the upper arm. Cool. And the bone moved slightly. Did you see that? It jumped a bit. To fix this, we need that pole angle over here. So I've found in my own testing that it's usually a 90-degree change. It's either positive 90 degree or negative 90 degree. I have seen some cases where it was a 180-degree change. But to fix it, all you do is you click drag on the pole angle. Minus 90 degree or positive 90 degrees should fix it for you. But that can vary. It all depends on your bone's rotation. So that gives us a nice controller. If I go into pose mode and I move this, see how that moves the arm? But this now moves the elbow. So if I go select that in pose mode, that's the type of thing we're looking for. You move it up, elbow goes up, move it down, elbow goes down. Cool. So that is our arm. Okay everybody, same procedure for the legs. So we need to go all the way down here to that ankle, back into edit mode. I'm just going to press my numpad full stop so that I can focus on it. Look at it from the top down view. Say E to extrude. Extrude that backward. Here we go. And then I'm going to click on this and say Alt P. Clear parent. And make sure disconnect bone has been done as well. Okay, there we go. So in edit mode, I'm going to select the foot. Then I'm going to shift select this and Control P, keep offset. So this we need to rename into the IK underscore CTRL underscore lower leg dot L, enter. Righty. So same procedure. If I go into pose mode and I move this around, you'll see that it moves that. We need to get to move the rest of the leg. Alrighty. So select the lower leg in pose mode. Lower leg selected. Blue T-bone stake. Here we are. Add an inverse kinematics. The target is our armature, so eyedrop icon or orange armature. The bone, we are looking for our IK CTRL and then this foot controller. So let's say IK underscore CTRL the lower leg dot L. There we go. Chain length to 2. Perfect. So pose mode, we move this again. Whole leg moves. Very nice. But if I move it too far down, it breaks off. So I hope you can see there's like a pattern going on. We need to add another target. So edit mode, select that nub for the knee. Look at it from the top down. And then select that. E to extrude. Select this new bone that's just been made. Alt P, clear parent. Cool. And with that separated, G to move it back a little bit, just like what we did with the elbow. And let's rename this to IK underscore CTRL underscore upper leg dot L. Cool. So now I'm going to go back into pose mode, just save quickly with Control S to save. So to fix the break, let's go to this yellow bone, pole target, our armature, and the bone. Well, we need that one that we just created. So IK CTRL upper leg dot L. Perfect. And of course the bone moves a little bit again. Although this one was not as bad by the looks of it. You can also tell if you select the controller and you move it sideways. See how I move it here to the right side and the bone goes to the left. So that's how you can kind of see that it's being a little bit sus. We need to take this and fix it. So let's try and figure out a good angle for this. I'm going to say minus 90 degrees again and see if I get lucky. Okay, so I select you. I move you down there, that's okay. If I move you back there, that's okay. I move you up, down. Let's take this and move this back. I see that it's still being funny. So clearly minus 90 is not what we need. We need something else. Let me try positive 90 degrees. Nope. Okay, let's try 180 degrees. So we're going to do a lot of sort of searching. I know it's laborious, but it has to be done. And I'll cut back when I found the exact angle that I need. Hello everyone, we are back. So I tinkered around a little bit. If you select the nub for the knee, you delete that previous bone, extrude the knee going out this way, it actually works quite a bit better. So the knee controller at the front. Yeah, so extrude that bone here in edit mode, then go Alt P, clear the parent. So now we can take this bone, move it a little bit to the front so that it's got some space. We can take this, press F2 to rename, or go to the little green bone window to rename it. I'm going to say IK underscore, I had caps lock on, IK underscore CTRL underscore, and I'm going to say knee, like that. You could have it be, what's it, the upper leg, if you wanted, but I'm just going to say knee, and then dot L. So that gives us this bone. Now if you go into pose mode, you select the IK bone. We still have our pole target because we selected the armature. In bone, search up IK underscore CTRL, and there it is, the knee. So I've got that selected, which means now if I move this around, it works quite nicely. Yes, you can see I've changed my pole angle to be 180 degrees here. So when I first tested this, I got this result. If I tried having it follow the knee, see how it sort of bends weirdly. So I changed my pole angle to positive 180 degrees, and that kind of righted everything for me, which is pretty cool. So I can take this bone, move it to the side, see how it follows it nicely. If I take this little controller over here and I move that up, and maybe even move it a bit to the side, see how I can take the knee and it still sort of follows the knee. So yes, that sort of thing is what we need. Of course we have same problem over here. If I select the leg by this IK control and the foot breaks off. So ideally we should have this stick on, much like what we did here with this hand controller. See how that hand bone stays on. So to prevent the break, what we need to do is we need to select this foot. We need to go into the blue T-bone stake menu, add bone constraint, and we need copy location. Then our target is going to be the armature, and the bone is going to be the lower leg bone here. So I'm going to say IK underscore lower leg dot L. And remember, it vanishes into Spanish, it jumps away. So to fix this, we need to go to our head tail slider and just max that out. Click drag on the number here and you'll be able to move it around. So now with that, if I try and move this, see how the foot stays on? Very nice stuff. So that gives us our leg. So let's just make sure none of these have deform. So remember, the only bones that should have deform are the bones in our actual bones layer. If you're using Blender 3, that'll be the bones in your bone group or bone collection instead. So just make sure that you uncheck deform. It seems to have snuck itself into our controllers. So just make sure those are out. Alrighty, so that gives us our IK arm and our IK leg. All of our pole targets nicely done. So let's go back to the green running man icon. I'm going to go into object mode so that I can click out of this. Okay, so we have the IK bones. Here we've got the normal bones. And here we've got the FK bones. So the FK bones, just also in pose mode, run through each of them. Make sure you're on the FK bone layer. Run through each of them the little green thing. Here our little green bone menu. Make sure that none of them have deform. Okay, good. We're just being extra sure. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to show the original, like that. And then we need to show the IK. So we have these two both showing at the same time now. And everything we do will be in pose mode. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to zoom in to this upper arm. If you select the upper arm, you'll see it tells you the name of the bone you've got selected. So here we've got upper arm L. If I click again, you'll see it selects the IK. It says IK upper arm L. So what we need to do is we need to first select the IK bone, like that. Then shift select the original bone. And with those two bones selected, we need to go Control Shift C, copy transforms here. And that's the first bone done. So we need to do the same for the elbow, the wrist, and of course all of the legs. So let's select the IK bone here, then shift select the lower arm bone, Control Shift C, copy transforms. Select the IK hand, then shift select the other hand, Control Shift C, copy transforms. And you can see it actually takes the bones and it will sort of snap our new IK bones to the position of the original bones, or vice versa, depending on the order that you select everything in. Okay, let's go to this upper leg. So it's the IK first, then shift select the normal, Control Shift C, copy transforms. The IK first, then the normal, Control Shift C, copy transforms. The IK first, then the normal, Control Shift C, copy transforms. Okay, so that gives us all of that done for the IK. Of course, now we have to do it for the FK as well, and it's the same process. So just make sure you save your work, and let's move on to the FK. So I'm going to hide the IK bones. I'm going to show the FK bones. So now I've got my normal bones layer, and I've got my FK bones enabled. I'm going to select the FK. So there it is. Shift select the one below. Control Shift C, copy transforms. The FK, then the original, Control Shift C, copy transforms. The FK, then the original, Control Shift C, copy transforms. The FK, then shift select the original, copy transforms. And we work our way all the way down. Here we go. So that is completely Gucci now. That's absolutely everything that we need there. So now what we need to do is we need to add a control to allow us to basically blend between the IK and FK. So our controller has to be on a bone. So what a lot of people do is they'll actually go into edit mode and they'll take the head bone here. They like to shift deduplicate that and then add the control up there. But for the purposes of what we're doing today, let's do that on our main bone down here instead. Because we've already got a bone That's sort of off the character. Why not use it for something? Okay, so this is where our settings actually come in pretty clutch. Select your main bone over here. In the green bone tab, make sure it does not have deform. If you want to take the other route where you use a different bone, like you duplicate the head bone and you want to use that for your controls instead, then you would have to rename that bone Rig Properties. And then you would follow all the steps that I'm about to do now on the main bone. You would just use your own different bone. And you don't have to disconnect it either. But yes, so I'm going to work here on this main bone. So I'm looking for the item tab, which means I have to press N on my keyboard. Over here, if you press N in either window, so this one here, the item tab sits up there. And yes, it's got a whole bunch of things, but this isn't the item tab I am looking for. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Let me go into pose mode. There we go. That's the one that I need. I need this item tab here with all the locks. So if you select your main bone, and then you lock all your rotation, location, and scale controls. So lock, 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 lock. Everything is locked down here. You see, I can't move this bone around either now. It's completely stuck. So in that sense, you can do this on your main bone, or you can do this on a duplicate bone. If you do it on your main bone, of course, it means you can't just like drag your character around here anymore. But I'm going to stick with this for now. So let's say all of this is locked. What we need to do now is in the bone properties, which is the green bone tab here, we need to scroll all the way down here to custom properties. We need to click new, and it gives us a little variable, which is pretty cool. We need to go into that cogwheel. You can leave it as a float, that's completely fine. You could have it be an int as well if you wanted, but let's rename this to, let's say, IK FK underscore switch. And then we'll just say, okay. So that gives us our little switch. You'll see if you press N while you have the main bone selected, N for Nestle, you'll see over here, it has our little property variable. So what we need to do is in the green bone window, hover over this property number here. You could probably do one for your legs and one for your arms as well if you wanted. That means you'd have two separate bones. But let's just deal with this one. So if you hover over that number, you right click over the number here. We're looking for copy as new driver, which is down here. So you just say copy as new driver. Then what we have to do is we have to paste this driver onto our other bones, specifically our normal ones. So let's hide everything except the normal bones in the green running man. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way up here to the first upper arm dot L. I'm going to go into the blue T-bone steak menu, and look at that, we've got transforms. So those are from what we were doing earlier on with the whole copy constraints thing, copy transform location, blah, 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 blah. Here they all are. So we need to go into the second of these. So not the first one, the second one here. And in the influence, which is this blue bar down here, we need to right click, and then it should be paste driver. There we go. And it becomes purple. So we need to do that for every one of these normal bones. So I'm going to say paste driver, paste driver. Essentially we're taking that control, that little control that we did, and we're making it affect all of these bones. So if we change it to 1, it means the bones should be thinking that they're IK, and if we change it to 0, they should think that they are FK, or vice versa. So there we go. I've just done the whole paste as driver for every single thing, repeat it for all of them. Do not do this on the IK and FK bones, only on your base bones, which is why we hid the others over here. Okay, so once you've got all of that done, this is the point where if your character's got a tail, or your character's got like furry ears, or different like wings or something like that, this is where you'd want to rig that. Furry ears are usually, I think, 3 bones. A tail kind of looks like a snake, how you rig it, and usually the bones point away from the character. But yes, there are tutorials for how to make dragon wings and bat wings as well. Let's take this and in edit mode, so put this in edit mode. We can also unhide the IK and FK, press A so that they're all selected, A to select everything here. Save quickly. What we're going to do is we can say armature up here, symmetrize. There we go. So that symmetrizes everything for us. If you get an error about these bones here, like you might get an error about certain bones not being joined together, like that, you just need to skip earlier into this video. I did go over like, what was it? It was Shift S, which you can use to fix that. But yes, that gives us our entire character. If something hasn't been duplicated, odds are you did not add the .L. So you can always Control Z and then re-symmetrize. So here, see how I've got .R now. .R, .R, .R. Our character has become a pirate. So everything there automatically has been named with a .R, which is pretty freaking swag. So everything with .L has now been duplicated, flipped to the side, and given a .R. So that is our character symmetrized. We do need to actually go back into edit mode though, and I'll give you a good reason why. If I select that main bone and I try and rotate, okay, that's right. If I unlock the rotation on the main bone, just for demonstration's sake, and I try to rotate, see how from the side view the controls have not moved. So what we need to do is we need to actually go into our IK here. So I've just got the IK layer selected, and in edit mode we need to select all of these IK controls. So I'm holding down Shift to multi-select the one at the back, the one at the back. So that's every single IK control selected. Man looks like a scarecrow. And then we Shift select the main bone at the very end and Control P, keep offset. So now they are all childed to the main bone. Which means if I go here now on the main bone and I rotate, see how our controls now follow nicely? So that's pretty damn pog. And it gives us everything that we need. Your main bone, you can keep these locked, you can keep these unlocked, it's up to you. I'm going to keep them unlocked just for now. But know that whenever you move that around, it could disjoint your person. So it's best to not accidentally move that. Okay, so that gives us everything. Now, what we can do is hide the IK, hide the FK. If we select the bones here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into object mode. And we're going to do some weight painting. Ooh. So to weight paint, that means to have our skin and our skeleton start controlling each other. Because over here, if I try and like move the arm, for example, see how the skin's not moving, just the skeleton. So if I go object mode, alrighty, what we need to do is select the skeleton, just the base one, not the IK, not the FK, just the base one. Then shift select the mesh or the skin, so skeleton then skin. And what we can do is we can go down here into weight paint mode. But you'll see there's nothing here right now. If I select these bones, there's nothing showing. So we need to actually give this character a little bit of weighting first. So to do that, we will select the skin, then shift select the skeleton. So if you do this correctly, you should see the skin has got like a darker orange and the skeleton's got a lighter orange. So with that, what we can do is we can say Control P with automatic weights. Okay, and it doesn't look like it did much, but that's because our character is fairly low poly, so it was a quick processing time. Okay, so now if you select the skeleton, then you shift select the skin, so the opposite. So now the skeleton's got the darker orange. Now if you go from object mode down into weight paint mode up here, and you do Control Shift left click to select a bone, look at that. Now each of these bones has got what looks like a bit of a heat map around it. So that's pretty cool. We're able to see exactly what skin each bone influences. So if I go back to object mode, let me select the skeleton just to give you guys a demonstration. If I go into pose mode and I select this bone up here, look at that. We've got it manipulating the skin now. You can select one of these green bones and try and move it. You see it doesn't move around. So that's because that's hooked up to our IK and FK. So that's what's going to control that. But for all the gray bones, we can go around, move everything, and test it out. That's pretty damn swag. We do have a few things we need to clean up with the weight painting, which is that if I select the head, for example, and I rotate, see how we've got this sort of twist. Another good example is if I select the head, I rotate it all the way back. Look at what that chin is doing. That chin is sort of scrunching inward. So that sort of thing is where you would want weight painting. If I rotate here, see how rotating, let's do along here. This is affecting this area here. There are things that we can clean up a little bit. The legs look like they'll be okay, but we'll give all of these a go. Even for things like the fingers. So there's all sorts of things that we can check out here. So weight painting mode, I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to select the skeleton, then shift select the skin. Object mode into weight paint mode. Here we go. So to select a bone, it's either Control Shift click if you're in Blender 4. If you're in Blender 3, you might be able to get away with just control clicking, but I can't do that in my version of Blender 4. You can also Alt and click, and that gets you the same thing. So you can Alt click or you can Control Shift click. So I'm going to save here quickly. Alrighty, so this is technically the end of this. I do want to do something separate for weight painting, but I'll give you a quick rundown of how you can get some weight painting going. So weight painting, at the very top here, you've got something that looks like a little planet Earth. If you click on that, you've got add, darken, draw, lighten, mix, multiply, subtract. The important one is add, and then subtract, those two. So you've got weight, you've got radius, you've got strength. They all control something different. The important thing to note is you can use your curly brackets to increase the size of this, or you can just click drag on the radius to increase the size or decrease the size as well. And you've got your strength here too. If I remember correctly, it's Control F, which should control your weight, Control F, and then Shift F controls your strength. So those are the shortcuts, Control F for the weight, Shift F for the strength. But I prefer just clicking on these. And then for the radius, I do like using the curly brackets. Those are these ones. Let me open up Paint quickly. Yoink. Curly brackets being like those. So what we should do with weight painting is if you hover your mouse over an empty space up here, let me just move this across, hover your mouse over an empty space and scroll around, you should be able to see this. So I've got like a butterfly and then X, Y, Z. So what's going on right now is I'm weight painting one side of the character and it's automatically weight painting the other side of the character. So that could be because of a skin modifier. Let me just check. I don't have any modifiers. I've got a mirror modifier. That's what it is. Okay. If I were to apply the mirror modifier on my character, so without the mirror modifier, the character was only half a person, half the man he used to be. So if I were to apply this mirror modifier and then go back into weight paint, so the skeleton in the skin, weight paint mode, just for demonstration for everyone, see how I can weight paint one side and it doesn't do the same thing on the other? So if you want to enable that weight mirroring, what you need to do is this butterfly icon up here. See how it's got X, Y, and Z? If you select X so that it's blue, now by weight painting one side, it lets me weight paint the other side the exact same as well. But this is per bone, which means it should, if I Control Shift select this arm and I make that super red, Control Shift select this arm, it doesn't look like it auto applied if I do that. No. See how it is per bone. So yes, what we need to do for weight painting, this sort of thing, wherever it's red, the bone is going to control the skin very well. Wherever it gets colder, so it goes from like yellow to green to blue, it has less control. So with something like that chin, remember how that chin was smudging a little bit? You'd want to ideally go here and click and just drag around to weight paint. You can also just like rapid click, 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 click sort of thing. It's always looking for the verts, your little vertices. And that's what it uses as the control points. So I can just click, 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 like so. And that gives us weight painting for that bone. Then I'll select the bone down below here. And I could click, 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 click around here so that this bone controls more of the neck area. And it's nice that the mirroring is on. If these in front bones are getting in the way, you can always hide all the other bones around them. The shortcut for that, if I remember correctly, I think it was Shift H. Yes, I've still got it. It is Shift H. And then it's Alt H to show everything. So Shift H. Alt H should work for me here. Let me double check why that's the case. Maybe if I go into edit mode, Alt H now, go back into pose mode. Okay, well let me quickly figure that out. Okay, I think it was just a glitch. I just hit Alt H twice and it showed everything again. Huh, strange. So skeleton, then skin, weight paint, not texture paint, weight paint. So yes, the idea is you'd want to run through all of these bones. Remember, if you're working in an older version of Blender, you might just have to control click. So yes, if you're working in Blender 4, any of the Blender 4 versions, including like long-term support and stuff like that, you'll notice that you can weight paint stuff like so. But if you hold Control down and you weight paint, note that I've got add, but it's taking away. So by holding Control while weight painting, it automatically does the opposite of what this brush is intended on doing. So instead of adding now, I'm actually subtracting. So that's a shortcut so that you don't have to keep going up here over and over again. You can just click, drag, or click, 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 click sort of thing. And then it's like, oh, I don't like how far up that one's gone. Hold down Control, and I can just fix it that way. Pretty cool. Note that weight painting does not carry through the model. See here, I've got the front is being red, the back is not. So you would have to manually go over to the back and select all of these. Let me make the radius a little bit bigger. I like working with a strength of 8, but it looks like here I have to be a little bit more sensitive to the model. Just control everything here, control drag so that nothing else extra has been selected. Maybe even lower that a little bit. Yes, so you'd want to run through your whole character, making sure that everything is weight painted. Like this area here is good, but this pelvis, you might want it to control more of the hip area. So you could drag over here a bit, like so. And I could look at the character from the back, drag around here a little bit, and then just look at the side, make sure that that's all good. Yeah, so this is the premise of weight painting. make sure that your character's legs don't control like more than they need to. So these legs are going very high up. I'm actually going to retract those down a little bit. I'm very much doing this by eye, so you don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. Just do what makes the most sense for your character. Like, you don't want the left leg to control the right leg. You don't want the right leg to control the left leg. So here, for example, if I selected that leg and there was a little bit of green here on the other one, I would want to remove all of that. So yes, each bone should only control its own bit of flesh. That includes stuff like the toes. So if I look down on the toes here, so each end toe, so this shouldn't actually control the ones up there. This one here shouldn't control the ones up there. So you get the gist of this. Use the topology of your character, the poly flow of your own character, to sort of help with this. So I've already got bones controlling these lower parts here of the toes. So I don't want the tips of the toes to control, you know, the lower, thicker parts of the toes. So I can just get that out the way, get this out the way here, that out the way, so on, so on. And so you work your way through the whole character like that. You've got to make sure that these lower parts of the toes don't control too much of the foot. So yes, just work your way through the character. There are some parts where it's actually best to move your character around a little bit in pose mode to see where it's sus. This hand bone here is not really controlling too much of the back of the hand, so you might want to increase that, and so on, so on. So just go around weight painting your character and make sure each bone has got a nice little heat area. It doesn't have to be blood red around any of the bones, but just do what you can. And once that's all done, if you select your skeleton and then you go into pose mode, you move the character around, you'll see already that's so much better. But I can see this clavicle is controlling a little bit of here, so I might want to reduce that. The chest area is good, that's nice. The head area, if I take this head bone and I rotate it all the way around, so it's still got a little bit of a smudge going on, but it's not as bad as it was. The neck is pretty solid, that's nice. Sternum is very good. Yeah, so just run through your character. Pelvis is way better now, it's not really messing up my legs. So run through your character, all the weights for all of the bones here, including fingers and stuff. I know it's annoying, but it's a necessary evil. So once you've got all your weight painting done, you can save again and press N on the keyboard. Select the main bone, ideally in pose mode, and you can see it's got the little property here. So that property, what it does is, if I show the other skeletons here, so I've got green running man, all three skeletons, all three bone groups are showing. Kind of looks like one of those Evangelions, very cool. This is currently at 1, which means it will allow me to control our base skeleton, this green boy. It will allow us to control him with either the IK or the FK. I'm not sure which one is configured to just yet, so let's find out. If I try and control him using here. Okay, so there we go. 1 for me, having this on 1 means that when I go here and try and move the character around, it allows me to control the IK by the looks of it. No, it's the FK. It allows me to control the FK. Okay, so then if I go here and I make this go from 1 all the way down to 0, and I go back here, there. So see how, for me, it might be a different balance for you guys. It might be swapped around. But if I've got the main bone IK switch on 1, so I click drag it all the way to 1, see how Blender now decides one of the skeletons, either the IK or the FK, will control the skin and the other won't. So when mine is on 1, my IK isn't in control anymore. See, it's not moving the little fingers and everything. But the FK, if I select the FK bone, is. So 1 for me gives FK all the power. If I go back to the main bone and I yoink, make it 0, now if I go to the IK controller, now IK has all the power and FK has none of the power. So that is how our switch works. By having this on 0, for me, it gives me IK control, and having it on 1 gives me FK control. So that is basically a switch in its simplest form. It gets way more complicated, but for this video, I think that's okay. There's other videos on YouTube that take this further. But yes, just know that in my example here, I'm pretty sure 0 was IK and 1 was FK. For yours, it could be the opposite. So just in pose mode, test that out. See which one allows you to manipulate the model. So yeah, there we go. That's the entire tutorial. Make sure that your weight painting is solid and that you've got that controller working. Also make sure that all of your little IK things are once again childed to your main bone. And it's up to you if you want to lock the main bone or not. I'm going to keep it unlocked for now so that I can move my dude around. Very, very cool. So yes, that gives us complete control over the character. And it looks like we are off to a very, very good start with this. So I'm going to end the video there. Thanks for watching. I know it was super long, but I hope that this has managed to work for you in your version of Blender. And it shouldn't become outdated too soon. But yes, thanks for watching.